Ashley, thank you so much. That was, no, just one second, Manish. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for that. We'll just get my microphone on. Thank you so much. Wow. Apologies for that. I am so sorry. But thank you very much. Ashley, wasn't that wonderful? I feel very relaxed, and I hope you do too. We're going, apart from the how round. But anyway, we've got to wake you up for the second session, haven't we? We're going to return now our attention to the global energy transition and talk about effective leadership strategies and how to navigate to a low-carbon economy, particularly when it comes to supply chains and their operations. We have a fascinating chat with an executive who's at the heart of the matter for one of the companies who's really, really leading the way forward. So would you please join me in welcoming onto the stage now Manish Pant. He is Executive Vice President, International Operations for Schneider Electric. Manish, come and join me. Nice to see you, sir.
Thank
How
you,
are you
Emma.
doing?
I'm good, thank you.
Take a seat there. Did you get a chance to do some meditation?
Actually, no.
We'll,
but yes,
we'll try that
I
later.
hope that the audience had a good opportunity to break.
And now they're ready for you, that is for sure. Okay, let's get back to the road to net zero, the carbon emissions. Let's start with a big headline, shall we? We know that the UN Climate Accord and the UN forecasts are trying to not have global warming exceed 1.5 degrees by the end of the century. A huge amount of effort is going into it, but is it enough? Do you think that we will hit that goal or not? Because currently estimates suggest that we are way above it.
So yeah, I think let's, I would start by saying first that the good news is we have over 150 countries that have committed to net zero, that is between 2050 and 2070. At the same time, there are over 10,000 companies that have also committed to net zero and are working towards it. But, you know, just making commitments is not enough. We've seen that in 2024, we are already at 1.5 degrees, a little bit ahead of that in terms of the curve. So it's true that we need to do things more. We need to do faster. We need to bend the curve faster so that we are able to get that. As technology company, I think we are an optimist, and we truly believe that we have technologies today, and we'll have more in this period of time that could be deployed to make that happen.
I was going to ask if you're an optimist. I suppose you have to be, don't you, the job that
That's
you
right.
do.
That's right.
You talked about technology. Of course, Schneider Electric is very much a technology firm. You're at the cutting edge of this climate technology. You say the technology is here, which is fantastic news, reasons to be optimistic. What are the challenges, though, in the barriers in adopting that technology?
Well, today what we find based on some of the surveys that we've done is there is need to have a lot more of internal alignment. There is a need for more data that is required so that we are able to manage it better. There's need for more financing. There is need for more training and upskilling in order to deploy those technologies. And then there's a need for data and understanding of the climate evolution, which is going to help us, manage those opportunities. So, still there are a few challenges around it, but we are here to work together to see how we are able to find solutions to them.
So you've listed quite a few needs. Then the list of needs is pretty strong. In terms of prioritizing those needs and also prioritizing the solutions. What would you put there in place in order to increase the decarbonization process?
Well, I think what we would say is that we need to deploy these technologies faster, right? And if you look at it, there is the supply side and then there's a demand side. Sure. How we are able to make sure that we are addressing both of them. Today, if you look at the economics of investment into sustainability, decarbonization, or energy transition, most of the solutions have a payback in the region of 3 to 5 years. I can bring some examples here.
Please.
For Capgemini, for example, which is one of the large employers in India, and they have been using technologies around their 23 campuses and 70 buildings, they've found that they've been able to save up to 30% of energy across these campuses using the technologies that are available today. Velo, which is an industrial company making pumps, and not so far from here in Indonesia, they have been using our solutions, and again, able to reduce the downtime by 30%, save energy by over 25%. So there are clear benefits which are there. When we have to look at deployment of these technologies, it is a lot about looking at the full life cycle. And yes, there is an upfront investment, but then the benefits are going to accrue over the life cycle. And therefore, the financial models have to be a bit different when we are looking at deploying these technologies.
Just going back to the supply side, because you mentioned supply side and demand side, and there are challenges on both. But on the supply side, there's some promising signs when you look at the fact that renewable energy costs are coming down significantly, aren't they? What impact is that having?
Well, what is happening is that we have seen that the growth of renewable is quite high. If you look at it in terms of the energy transition and the decarbonization, supply is 50% of the solution. So here we have the renewables, which is one of the lowest costs per unit, and therefore there's a deployment there. At the same time, there is a demand side, which is we can further break it down into energy efficiency, which is thanks to digitization, we are able to get up to 30% saving, and I gave some examples of that. Then you have electrification. So the more we electrify, the more we are able to decarbonize, because electricity is the cleanest vector of decarbonization, the cleanest form of energy. So, there is supply side, which is renewable, but at the same time, if we focus also on the demand side, the two together is where the acceleration is going to come.
And as you mentioned, on the demand side, there is energy efficiency, which is a big issue, isn't it? Is enough attention being paid on using energy more efficiently, would you say?
Yeah, thanks for saying that. What we say is that digitization is at the base of the driver for energy efficiency, but it's more than just energy efficiency. When we are digitizing, you are able to collect data, and then you are able to overlay that with artificial intelligence and drive more efficiency. So it's a very positive flywheel that you are building as you digitize more. Now, once you're doing that, you are able to do things like digital twin, which are able to help you actually reduce the capex, the initial investments that you're making, because you could model and see what you need, and you are able to right-size your asset. At the same time, when you look at the operate stage of any asset, you're able to do predictive maintenance, you're able to bring better safety, you're able to look at managing equipment in a much more efficient way. So there is an increase in productivity, there is an increase in efficiency, there is an increase in the life cycle, across the full life cycle. So yes, digitization has multiple benefits, and clearly something that we need to make sure that we are doing more of.
Steve was talking about the COP summits just in the last session or before. Quite interesting, actually, just to read out one of the facts. At COP28, countries reached a landmark agreement to work together collectively to double the global average annual rate of energy efficiency improvements by 2030, which is not that long away. How does that help, do you think, when you have pledges like this when it comes to energy efficiency?
Well, 25% of the solution, we can save up to 25% or 30% of energy through digitization, through efficiency. The problem of carbon is a problem of energy. Okay, so if you look at it today, 80% of the solution is lying with energy, and 80% of that could be resolved with the solutions available today. And what we are saying is 30% energy savings are possible. So the math is that you are able to get up to 25% savings right there. So, and this could happen across segments, whether it's about data centers, whether it's about infrastructure, whether it's about industry, whether it's about buildings. So there are examples. I can bring some more. At Schneider Electric, we drink our own champagne, being a French company. Here in Singapore, we have our office, which is 20 years, it's a 20-year-old building that we have been able to, using our own technology, reduce the consumption by 1/4 in a period of 5 years. And the payback for that, thanks to energy efficiency and also through design, is about 3 years. So this is what is possible. And the more that happens, the faster we are able to bend the curve.
When it comes to your technologies, which ones are you most excited about?
Well, all of them.
Or which sector?
Well, it is, I would say that, this is across all segments. I mean, I mentioned that before. Maybe what we would like to say is how to deploy those technologies. What we say is it's about strategizing. It's understanding the baseline of, the carbon that you have. It is about digitizing, and we talked about that. And once you digitize, you know how much you can measure, you are able to know how much you're using, and then after that, you are able to decarbonize. So it's about strategize, digitize, and then decarbonize using the solutions.
You've got a big job, Manish. I mean, you are Executive Vice President for International Operations at Schneider Electric. I mean, you've got oversight of the whole of the Global South. It is huge, isn't it? I mean, in terms of the regions that you look after, can you give us a brief idea of the challenges and the opportunities that you see on a day-to-day basis?
Well, thank you. I think I'm humbled to be in this position where you have almost 50% of the world population and 18% of GDP of the world. I think the challenges here are twofold. One is we have about 3 billion more people in this part of the world that are going to be, coming in the next couple of decades. At the same time, we have the big challenge of access to energy. We still have about 1 billion people who don't have access to energy. Another 1 billion of those have intermittent access to energy. So how we are able to bring this access to energy to the 5 million people that would be added in this part of the world is, I would say, is the first challenge. And we need to make sure that we are doing that in a green way, in a decarbonized way. At the same time, with this, there is, the wealth creation is happening today. People want the same access to lifestyle that everybody else has. And therefore, there is a huge investment in infrastructure build that is happening in this part of the world. If you look at it, in Africa and India put together, you have the same amount of construction that exists today in Europe and China that is going to happen in the next couple of decades in Middle East, Africa, and India put together. So that's the challenge. But at the same time, you have the old buildings, which will still be there. The old infrastructure will still be there. So how you're able to marry the old and the new, make sure that you're able to bring the old into using the technologies into being decarbonized and green. At the same time, what you start making afresh, which is a lot of it, is green right from the beginning.
What's easier?
Well, I would say we have to do both. And the good news is, again, that the technologies are there, both to retrofit, which is a large part of the challenge in the developed world, as well as using the technologies for what is new.
Is finance there? We talk a lot, don't we, about the funds from the global north need to flow into the global south. You must spend a lot of your time looking at that. Can you give us an update on finance?
Well, clearly there is need for more financing and more money to be deployed.
Is it getting easier?
Well, on the supply side, yes. I mean, if you look at the investment in renewables, that is there. We clearly need more to come on the side of the demand side with new models. And this is how we'll have to approach it. And here, again, there's a big call out to the financial institutions and to companies to say how we are able to bring new models that are going to bring in the returns that are going to help us deploy these technologies faster in this fast-growing area.
So as we go into the close, Manish, what is your message to business leaders who are kind of navigating their own companies to net zero, particularly in the global south? What do you say to them?
Well, the message is that, this is a great opportunity for us to rethink how we are building things, how we are going to look at deploying and innovating as we build this new era. At the same time, it is great that we are able to use the purpose of decarbonizing, electrifying, as well as creating new profitability and resilience for our companies.
Okay, well said, Manish. It's been a pleasure to talk to you. Thank you very much. Big round of applause, please. Manish Pan, Schneider Electric.
Thanks.
Thank you so much. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we've been talking a lot about the energy transition. We're going to have a look forward now to a net zero future. Take a look at this video.
The journey to achieving net zero emissions by mid-century is continuing at pace. Many governments across the globe continue to invest heavily in sustainable infrastructure. The world added 50% more renewable capacity in 2023 compared to the previous year. The private sector also has a vital role to play by investing in sustainable practices, supporting policy changes and setting their own ambitious targets.
So the ability to pull in not just private sector money commercially, but also philanthropic capital and other sources of capital will be vitally important.
Climate pledges are fast becoming standard practice across sectors. What are the key challenges businesses must overcome to deliver on these commitments? Almost 2/3 of the world's largest 2,000 publicly listed companies have net zero targets in place.
In the 6 years following the Paris Agreement, a lot of companies were actually making substantial progress. But I think that as the energy system, continues to be slowly transitioning, it is harder for companies to actually get those kind of low-hanging fruits in terms of energy efficiency and other kinds of operational efficiency.
How can leadership strategies successfully navigate towards a low-carbon economy while availing of the opportunities in scaling to clean energy solutions?
If I can get my consumers to prefer my brands because I am somehow more environmentally friendly, and I can convince them that that's the way they want to live their lives and make their choices, I'm going to be very successful.
What investments and technologies can help unlock the adoption of more sustainable supply chains and operations? And what role could regulations play in paving a clearer path to a net zero future? Welcome to CNBC's IoT, powering the digital economy debate as we focus on accelerating the global energy transition.
I mean, I have to say, I've covered a lot of panels over my years, and a lot of energy panels specifically, and my job, and the way my career has changed, has actually been in parallel with the energy transition as well. I started off as an oil equity trader and then equity derivatives, and I moved on to being the OPEC reporter, the oil correspondent for CNBC International. And guess what? I moved on, like a lot of us, to covering broader energy, to the energy transition, to the move to net zero as well. And it's been an amazing education. And I promise you something. Over the next, since 30 minutes here, we'll have as long as we like. I'm watching Mandy, I'm in trouble already. But over the next 30 minutes, I guarantee you will learn something about some extraordinary initiatives in the transition, and just following on from that amazing conversation just now. Let me get my guests straight on stage as well. In no particular order, we have Mitesh Patel, who is the Interim CEO and Chief Operating Officer of Sun Cable International. Oh my goodness me, what this company is doing is going to blow your mind potentially as well. Mitesh, no pressure at all on that one as well. Christina Shim is the Chief Sustainability Officer at IBM as well. We've had a couple of great conversations. She's as passionate about this as I am, I can assure you. Please take a seat. And Cenk Alper, this gentleman has had the mispleasure or whatever it may well be of meeting me many times over the years as well. And I can tell you, at the heart of Sabanci is sustainability. In fact, I'll tell you straight away already, no profit decision, no investment decision is made at Sabanci before it passes the first gate, which is sustainability. It's got to be profitable as well. And that, I hope you'll realize, has been the thematic of my conversations and other conversations you've had here at Converge, that actually this isn't about net zero or sustainability without profit. If there was one message I would want you to take away from this conference, and other people want you to have other messages, it's that actually profit and the move to sustainability, guess what? They go hand in hand. These three amazing businessmen and women wouldn't be here if profit wasn't involved? Do you think IBM would be doing that? Do you think Sabanci would? And as I say, Sun Cable got some extraordinary moves as well. I will start off with you, Cenk, actually, because I just almost took away your thunder by saying about the gates you have to go through. Just explain to this amazing audience what you mean by that.
Yeah. So we have an investment holding company investing in 5 different verticals: digital, material, mobility, energy, climate, and finance. And we have many options, but we have to find a common denominator. And for us, the common denominator is sustainability. So we are investing future technologies with the common denominator of sustainability. And our investment criteria, we first look to strategic fit, second look to sustainability fit, so whether any addition to the portfolio is diluting my carbon footprint or not, and then we look to the financial feasibility of that project. And guess, in the last 5 years, we have hundreds of projects. You know, our investment committee meets every week, and we find out business cases that are profitable, sustainable, and scalable.
I would like to be, it's like a dragon's den every week at Sabanci, isn't it? or the Shark Tank. I think that's our own version, isn't it? Yeah, I've got to get on message here. But actually, just explain to me one thing, and it suddenly came to me as you were talking. Has that job of sifting, your metaphorical Shark Tank, has it got easier or harder as the transition's gone on? Because one thing that's going to come up a lot is technology is moving apace. And we're not there yet on so many technologies. But the technology moves quicker, it gets scale, it gets cheaper. So investment decisions a couple of years ago were different from those investment decisions now with similar technologies. So is the job getting harder or easier?
Easier. Because as you get scale, costs are getting lower.
Yeah.
But what we do is we do invest the current scalable, sustainable technologies of today, but also we are developing an ecosystem of around new startups on climate and energy, for example. We have already deployed, $60 million to, 10 direct and 6 funds of fund investments just in energy and climate technology, to fusion, to deep geothermal, to battery technologies, to smart grid technologies, because the biggest problem of renewables is the interruption. You have 8 hours sun and then you are closed. But we need, especially with AI infrastructure, with new data centers, we need continuous base load, but clean energy. And we have to find them out.
I've got a man in a moment who'll be talking about what one of the solutions might be for continuous base load as well. But we'll come to that after Christina. Because IBM, what a journey your company is on as well. But it's not just about what you can provide for clients in terms of energy solutions and technological solutions. It's about what you can do on your journey yourselves as a company. Do you want to just explain to us how that's going?
Yeah, absolutely. So we actually put our first environmental policy in place back in 1971.
1971. I was a young
chap, a nice chap. I do think it's one of the reasons, I only joined IBM about 3 years ago, but it's one of the reasons I joined. I think just the fact that it's such a core part of the legacy and the DNA of how we think about the company. I took over my role as Chief Sustainability Officer about 8 months ago. And as part of that, my mandate is to embed sustainability in everything that we do internally and everything that we create, so to your point, externally, and how that supports our partners in the space. But I think the critical part of this is that a lot of CSOs, myself included, actually are increasingly coming from the business side. And why that's important, exactly to your introduction, is that these are things that should go hand in hand. It's not something that's a check the box. It's not something that's so nice to have, or let's just be a nice corporate citizen. This is really, data shows, right? Companies that truly embedded into what they're doing and all of the decision making, you're able to decrease your costs, you're able to create innovation and revenue growth, you're able to attract more talent, and I'm sure my colleagues here can attest to all of this. So it's just good business, right? And so at the end of the day, we have been doing this a lot within IBM in terms of the net zero goal, yes, and our journey with pollution and environmental management and all of the things. But increasingly just making sure that it is part of how we think about our mergers and acquisitions, how we think about our treasury, our investors. I mean, all the different stakeholders that are really critical as part of our success, in addition to building it into our products from a sustainable perspective, and then the use cases of that to support the energy transition. I mean, all of those angles across the spectrum, I think, is where we need to get to globally, across enterprises, across industries, to make sure that we're doing this the right way.
Yeah, and especially now, and we don't have to go into the politics now, we can maybe touch upon it a little bit later on as well, but being a CSO, being a chief diversity officer, being somebody who's not necessarily one of those core old-fashioned functions.
Right.
It's under attack now as well. But I think, and I'll just make the point one more time, your answer says this isn't about hitting ESG targets.
No.
This isn't about a nice to have for those investors who consider themselves stakeholders. It's about investors actually making cold, hard, logical decisions, and a
Correct.
CSO is part of that.
Correct. I will say one of the critical factors here is actually where we sit within the organization.
Yes.
So I report to our chief operating officer. My peers are the CIO, the chief procurement officer, the people who are responsible for cash. I mean, like all of the core operations of the business. And I think that's really important because that means that as we think about transforming the organization and making ourselves more productive and you know, more innovative, et cetera, that it's core to how we think about the operations of the enterprise globally. I think if you're a CSO and you're sitting in other areas of the organization where it's not core to how the business is being run, it's much more difficult.
And I'll just come back to you because, Mitesh, I will come to you in a moment. That is absolutely, and I hadn't thought of that before as well. There's a CSO and then there's a CSO. You know what I'm saying here as well? There's a CSO which reports to so-and-so, or you who's straight into the COO at peer level with chief investment officer and all. That makes such a difference. So that you can have a CSO but not give them the power and not give them the rank and position. You feel that you're empowered by IBM to have an equal voice as other those critical roles as well.
Yes, because I think that the challenge is, and I say this a lot, especially in the US, I think, which is a little bit further behind in the way they think about this topic compared to the EU or parts of Asia, is it used to be very much like, oh, let's just do more recycling, or let's make sure we're turning off the lights more, we're more efficient in our energy practices. And increasingly it is, again, part of our operational decisions. And so the fact that for me personally, coming into this role, it was really important that I did report into either the COO or the CEO.
Yeah.
I mean, it can be in a couple of different places. It doesn't have to be the COO, but I do think it makes a really big difference to be taken more seriously in terms of how it is going to be embedded within the organization.
Yeah, that's really, really important as well. I'm going to ask you a little question. I've decided that engagement is the way forward as well. Just a quick question, and you can be honest. How many of you have heard of Sun Cable International before this event? Okay, so we're talking a small percentage as well. I am going to blow your mind now with my conversation with Mitesh. I promise you, you're going to hear some stuff which, if it works, it's just extraordinary. Mitesh, I did some research on your company, and to say that you've got some grand ambitions is putting it politely. How about if I said to you, maybe building up the biggest solar operation on the planet, and maybe having the largest submarine interconnector line on the planet, and maybe having one of the biggest storage facilities on the planet. And if I said to you, this company's trying to do that, then you might get, wow, this is fascinating. I've taken a bit of your thunder, but just tell us all about it.
Yeah, so as I mentioned, we are bringing 1.75 gigawatt of solar plus battery storage power from Australia, from all the way Australia to Singapore. It's 5,000 kilometer transmission line, or 5,000 kilometers.
Again, he's understating it. I'm going to do it. 5,000 kilometer line.
Yep, and of which 4,300 kilometers is undersea. And some of it will also go up to the depths of 3,000 meters, so it's quite deep. It's the first of its kind of a project, but there are different elements of the project that have already been done elsewhere. So Europe has about 420 interconnectors. Maybe they're not as long as this and not as deep as this, but we have the technology readiness now, which will allow us to do something of this scale. What we are trying to do here is that, as you would have noticed, mankind has been moving energy from where it is found in abundance to where it is needed in abundance. So we have been moving coal, we have been moving oil, moving gas through either ships or long-distance pipelines. Electricity is just another form of energy, which we haven't yet started moving across continents or across long distances, but is no different than moving any other form of energy. We have now technology which allows us or enables us to do this kind of long-distance interconnectors, and that also means that you can scale the global energy transition where you can remove the intermittency of renewable energy. When you do this kind of long-distance interconnectors, you can do 24/7 or full 24 hours of renewable energy supply. Puts less pressure on the grid. It increases the reliability on the grid and the management of the grid. So those are quite a few significant advantages for countries or nations to scale up their energy, renewable energy mix in the portfolio of generation. Yeah. And the last part is that when you start doing this, it also helps the AI or the new tech, because you will have a lot of spill. We call it spill. When you are doing 24/7 generation and you're putting everything in a battery storage, there will be a certain power that you will not be able to store, and it's called spill. You can use that spill at the solar farm for the AI learning models, because the learning models don't need 24/7 electricity. They can be trained few hours or certain number of hours a day, and that's an extremely cheap energy. AI is going to need a lot of energy as we kind of see the penetration and adaptation, and this could be also one of the additional benefit from doing this kind of long distance interconnectors.
If it was easy, it would have been done already. So I really want to know, and I'll start off with you on this project, because I just, as I say, I find it mind-blowing, and then we'll work our way down as well. But what are the biggest barriers to getting this project going? I know that it's had speed bumps. We think it's on track. I can think of a few questions, but I want you to tell me, what are the biggest barriers to what could be one of the most phenomenal projects on the planet?
I think, first of all, it's about having that vision. So you need to think at a very grand level, bold vision. We have that in our investor, and that's why we're kind of moving forward with this project. The biggest barrier, in my view, would be the global supply chain and the geopolitics, because this kind of project will need huge amount of, for example, cable, panels, battery storage, and so on. And one of the examples is cable supply. In and around 2022, 23, there was relatively enough cable supply in the market for the kind of cable that is required for our project. And suddenly we had Ukraine and Russia conflict. Right. The European TSOs, the transmission system operators, decided to scale their renewable energy plants, and they went out with framework agreements to procure cable, which now has a waiting period of about 5 to 7 years. Wow. So this kind of geopolitical events could certainly bring a major risk to the project.
I didn't expect you to say that. So the Russo-Ukraine war has been detrimental to this project.
It added more challenges to the project.
Yeah.
We're still working with the manufacturers, and even manufacturers are stepping up to kind of scale up their production.
Christina, what are the biggest barriers for IBM and for you to develop products sustainably and at scale?
So I think if I can just take a step back in terms of context, one of the things that you mentioned was how much more energy will be required as part of this AI revolution. And I think one of the biggest challenges that we see with our partners is how to think about leveraging AI from a more intentional perspective, and that includes from a sustainability and environmental perspective. So for us, thinking about this across the full stack of AI. So I'm talking about everything from the chips to the infrastructure to the models, fit-for-purpose models that are not the big sledgehammers that you need to do a particular use case or an outcome, but you have a fit-for-purpose model that is the size that you need to get the job done. And then the applications of all of that, right, around how you can do this in the most energy efficient way, but also how you can think about management of energy grids and infrastructure and all of that. Thinking about the intentionality across that entire stack is quite challenging. I think in general, the adoption of AI, I mean, you've heard about AI so much, but the adoption of AI is not the question. It's a matter of how and in what capacity, if you will. And the challenges that we see, as well as what we're trying to make sure we're addressing with our partners, is how do you think about the sustainability and the mitigation of this across that stack? How do you and your organizations think about that as part of your adoption? And that's, at the end of the day, a change management and a people and a culture question, and that's always challenging, right? So I think from a technological perspective, we're making a lot of progress. I mean, chips that are literally 99% more efficient than they were 15 years ago, and it's just accelerating at a faster pace in terms of how much more sustainable a lot of the technology can be. But it's all about how humans and leaders are making those decisions and thinking about it more intentionally.
Yeah, we'll come to leadership decisions in a broader context in a moment as well. You've encouragingly said, Cenk, that actually those sustainable decisions at the first hurdle, and then the second hurdle, making them profitable, it's easier to make those decisions now than it was 5 years ago as well. Where are the biggest barriers for you to have a faster and wider adoption?
Yeah. So right now we are already constructing 2 gigawatts of renewables in Turkey and 1 gigawatt in United States. You know what? The biggest problem is still government, the permits. Because from licensing to making a project shovel ready, that total time is longer than the construction time. You have to go and apply 100 different authorities to get permits to install renewable projects.
So I'll jump in there. In the States?
In United States, same.
Europe?
The total project development time is changing.
But I'm going to jump. This is nonsense, isn't it? And I'm not talking about the States. I'm going to talk about Europe, for instance. We had the Russia-Ukraine war. We're all living with the devastating effects of that as well. I spoke to the CEO of one of the biggest turbine companies in the world, and he said to me, my permitting's taking 5-10 years for some of these as well. But funnily enough, and he was angry, he said they managed to actually get the permitting for an LNG terminal on the north coast of Germany within about 6 days.
Wow.
Just shows you what can be done if they really want to move on. He was spitting blood about this, and I share his frustration as well. Please carry on.
I think that's still the biggest issue, and as you rightfully said, in Europe it's really worse. Sometimes we have projects that the panels or the windmills are ready, and they wait grid connection for a couple of years. That's, I think, loss of energy, loss of value for the planet, for the nations, and for the companies.
I spoke to a CEO within the last couple of weeks, and I am not going to name his name. He said to me, I am a pretty important cog in the wheel in this energy transition, and I haven't spoken to my government once in the number of years. Again, I'm going to make this as opaque as possible so none of you can do any forensic work. I haven't spoken to my head of state once in the last 5 years plus about this. This was a fast-growing energy transition company that was stunningly profitable. What is it with the politician? I mean, we'll bring it back to Trump, but we always have to ask a Trump question. But what is it with the, when you speak, you are a very influential businessman, Cenk, as well. Right. Well, there was a little Gulffair advert, which I wasn't expecting. I'm sure they're incredibly sustainable at the same time. But in terms of what these... You speak to a lot of senior politicians. I know you do. What do you say? What do they say? What's the problem?
The politician you talk, he has always the answer. He says that I support you fully. But the problem is the coordination between the different bodies in the organizations. Because you have Department of Sustainability, Department of Energy, Department of that, and the coordination...
You know what they need to do, don't you? They need a CSO at a higher level. We've already established that.
And then the second problem is the continuity, because you have a policy for 4 years, 5 years, and then the government changes, everything changes.
Yeah.
So the continuity at the governments right now is also a big problem.
I'm not here to knock democracy. I love liberal democracy. I'm a fully played up member as well. But But the longer-term planning of a more central authority that can think in the medium to longer term, it's undeniable. They get things done quicker.
Look what China has done. In the last 5 years, the total renewable investments of China is higher than the rest of the world.
Hang on.
That's, I think, something...
The Chinese investment over the last few years is higher than everyone else put together.
Yeah.
Well, good on China. I mean, let's bad on the rest of us. Let's be brutally honest about it. There's a lot of things we can criticize China for. For that, double thumbs up. I'm going to ask you the question. We've talked about politics as well. Is it changing? Are you having to change your language with it? I mean, it's been 100 days plus. It feels like 10 years already. But I mean, the speed of policy announcements is phenomenal. There's some amazing things coming out of the administration. There's some tough things coming out of the administration. How has it affected how you do your job?
I'll go back to what I said in the very beginning, which is that I think when I first came into the role, and increasingly a lot of CSOs are coming from business backgrounds. And I say that, and it's really important because if you can show the business value of what we're doing for the organization, it doesn't really matter what other language you need to use. That being said, I think, look, there are some triggering words now, depending on where you sit around the world. And I think the more that you can quantify business value for what you're doing and tie it to, again, the business operations and business decision-making is only going to be more and more important.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, as long as the outcomes are the same, you just need to make sure that you're communicating in the appropriate way with the right stakeholders. And I would say in general, coming from, seeing organizations that have CSOs that are a little bit more like corporate social responsibility or philanthropy, like those are not, I think, the ways that you're going to be most successful going forward. But it's the same if you talk to your CFO versus your investor versus your procurement person, you kind of have to talk about things a little bit differently.
Yeah.
Similarly, I think just like from a sustainability perspective, depending on who you're talking to, and I think even more so in the US now.
It's about volume, isn't it? And we have a big sound desk in our control rooms, and the buttons go up on one part, they come down on another. I, as you might have noticed, only have one volume, which is why I'd be a rubbish CSO. But it's how you talk to people in their own language. It doesn't matter if it's a blue state, a red state, a purple state, speak to them in their own language as well. I can honestly say, and my bosses all know this, I love being here in Singapore. I think it's an amazing place. I think it's a can-do place. The developments and the speed of which actions can get done is phenomenal as well. Is that your experience with Singapore? Because obviously they are a major part of you putting this jigsaw together, Mitesh.
Yeah, so look, I think we're talking about the political support and the political will. Political will is absolutely essential for our kind of project, which has to cross few jurisdictions. So we have been fortunate to get support from Australia, Indonesia, and Singapore. Singapore has been very efficient in how they run some of their procurement exercises. You have a certain predictability of their policies and procedures, which is not often the case in many places. So that's something really that Singapore can be proud about, and we're thankful for. I think the other aspects besides what was earlier said by my colleagues here is that ensuring that the benefits of the projects are shared across your jurisdictions or with the people or the society or the community. And because for politicians, voters are their constituencies, not your project or not your company. You have to help them translate what benefits your project will bring to the constituents, which is your voters. And once you start doing that, we have seen that a lot of politicians and political parties get excited, and there is a certain level of traction that you can build around that. But I think that has to be done over a long period of time and in a consistent manner, a very focused message, besides doing all your regular CSOs and community work and helping out the underprivileged or the communities around your project.
Yeah.
Can I add in one thing to that? Because I think that what I'm also hearing, though, is like it's a communication thing, right? Like I think in general, there's so much of this that ties back into communication. How do you communicate with your internal stakeholders, whether it's different functions? How do you communicate with your constituents about the benefits of the different projects? How do you communicate? I mean, and I think I forgot. It might have been actually at Davos, this past Davos in Baku, where one of the threads that came out was that CSOs have a big communication problem. I don't think it's just CSOs, actually. I think, politicians, some people are just much better at this than others. It's at the forefront. Increasingly, I think from project perspective, business perspectives in general, you do a phenomenal job of saying, like, this is our number one thing, and then we have to think about the commercial value behind that. I don't think that we are at the point yet where it's being communicated in the most effective manner.
Yeah.
In a multifaceted way where a lot of people can make sure that they're thinking about the long-term.
I hear you. It's like everything has to be 3 letters on the acronym, doesn't it? Chief 1, 2, 3. But actually, it should be GPSO, Chief Profit and Sustainability Officer almost. But it's not 3 letters, so they can't have that in the boardroom. You were going to say?
One final thing, energy transition is measured by 3 parameters because there is a trilemma of energy transition. It should be equitable, so affordable energy and everybody accessible energy, because for most of the developing countries, energy is not there yet. Forget about transforming it. Second, it should be secure, so there should be constant supply of energy, especially it's more critical right now with AI. And third is it should be sustainable, so decarbonized. And the country's performance is measured based on these 3 parameters worldwide for many years. And leading countries in the world is the Nordic countries. And guess what? Despite its size, China is stepping up heavily over there. Yeah, but we need, and unfortunately, most of the financing goes to the developed countries and China, not developing countries where people need energy.
I'm really glad you said that, because that came up on our last panel about the circular economy as well, about the global south needs to be talked to rather than at. It needs to be solutions for the global south rather than for the rich northern hemisphere or western countries. I realize I'm actually in the territory where it's almost my last question of Converge on air, which after 5 panels and round tables is a very sad moment for me, a moment of joy for many of you as well. So I'm going to end on a very positive note as well, and that is, what area of the transition, what area of innovation, and I need one snippet of each of you as well, are you most excited about as well? It's going to be all kinds of things coming from Mitesh as well, given the scale of the project. But I'll start off with you, Mitesh, as well. What is the most exciting part of innovation on this journey, and you can combine it with how it's becoming more profitable, that you're most excited about?
I think I'm excited about the axis between AI and energy. AI is going to really transform, or it is a transformative technology that will change the world. And together with that, you will need a lot of energy to support that. I am aware that eventually AI will get smarter and will be more efficient in the energy that it uses. But it has to go hand in hand, where you look at your energy solutions. And I think right from nuclear to fusion to flow batteries and the plenty of stuff that is going around. The best part of that is the product innovation cycles are getting shorter. And therefore, the time to market is really getting faster.
That's great. Christina?
Yeah, the key word for me is innovation. I'm really excited. The pace of innovation is just incredible. One thing we didn't mention is quantum.
Yes.
I think quantum and the work that's being done in quantum.
That's because it blows my mind, and I really can't comprehend the quantum. That's why I daren't talk about it. I'm struggling with AI and fusion and SMRs. Quantum's just not there for me, but
it's just incredible. I think the applications of some of this technology, regardless of whether it's quantum or not. I'm not a particularly technical person either, but I think just the pace of accelerated innovation, what that means for sustainable chemical formulations for your makeup, or what that means for the infrastructure and for the grid, and just the applications across the board. I think we're just starting to see.
Right.
It's going to be incredible.
That's great.
Yeah.
Cenk?
For me, most exciting thing is the investment or innovation around clean baseload energy technologies. And what enablers are the new material science, AI and digital. The output is energy. So I think this is the most exciting thing.
Well, what's most unexciting for me is I've got lots of zeros here, which means I have to rap for once, and the lady's standing up to my left, to your right, so I know that I've actually got to be well behaved. Look, I really want to thank Mitesh Patel, Christina Shim, and Cenk Alper for a brilliant conversation, and actually a really optimistic way to finish it as well.
Thank you.
And thank you so much. And you know, Steve, you can always take as long as you like, so long as you stick to time. Look at that. Thank you. He did a huge amount of work here at Converge over the past couple of days. Let's give him a massive round of applause. Great job, Steve. Always bringing it, always bringing it. Thank you. And thank you very much to the panel as well, to Christina, Cenk, and Mitesh for really hammering home that concept that profit and sustainability do need to go hand in hand. And we also heard Steve ask the panel, you know, are CSOs under attack? But I actually would really like to thank Christina because she highlighted the fact that increasingly they need to be part of the key decision makers amongst the operations, and they can't just be, as she put it, you know, someone who says, do more recycling or turn out the